There's other specifics too to the project that I think just to save some time, because we've got a lot of details on the history of this, but other issues too. I mean, just questioning some of the purchases, who they came from, what they were, the scrutiny on the equipment, were they just sold, or did they actually look into it, or did somebody come in and said this is what you need. The job's been picketed by the local unions. They're not using a good portion of it is going out of the community for the jobs. But we have reasons though to question, and this isn't part of that, but we've got reason to question the bidding practices anyways, because they've got a $150,000 grant that's going to a firm out of Chicago to do energy audits on the 8 county facilities. And the only diligence that we heard in the committee meeting was when they asked if there was anyone local that could do it, and Mr. Donovan said that no one did it here as a primary function. So is that a good reason not to use? Is that even a legitimate argument?
For the 160 grand you're talking about, I mean, if you had somebody who has done it as a secondary project, or maybe even somebody who's thinking about a startup,
right.
To be an energy auditor, they're spend the money locally. I mean, these are all nuances that,
Did they get a bid from a local provider and they just ignored it?
To my understanding is they didn't even take any local bids because no one did it as a quote unquote primary function. That was the argument. That's all. That was the conversation. Didn't go any further.
Just curiously, did they hire Carol Schaefer as their construction?
No.
Like they did for the jail, they didn't hire?
He's retired.
So population is a pretty finite metric. It's grown 5% in 10 years, from 158 plus to 166,000 plus. But then we take a look at the, this is from the property taxes, the revenue. The top right corner in 2000 was just over $19 million in property tax revenue. That same year, the expenditures were 42 million plus, 42.6 in 2000. So you go 10 years in further, we went from collecting 19 million in property taxes to $34 million in property taxes annually. And we went from expenses of 42.6 to 68.1 annually. So when you throw that all together and you do some math, we had a 5% increase in population, but a 76% increase in the amount of taxes collected in 10 years, and a 59% increase in expenditures, with only a 5% population growth. So what can these folks do for Scott County taxpayers based on some of the stuff we see happening here? You guys want to talk about some of this?
Yeah, there's a harsh reality that, as increasing taxes and giving up power at the supervisor level, essentially giving others free reign over our pocketbooks. Cold reality is that we might have to, well, we will have to, if we want to either stop, minimize, or offset the a 20% increase in property taxes, and we can't do anything about the SCCC project, then we're going to have to find other areas to, or at least propose other areas to reduce taxes or reduce costs, so that the taxes still cover everything, but go back to say 2009 or 2008 level. It'd be really nice to go back to a 2005 level. Sort of expenditures were the lowest in the past 10 years, but that should be a goal. Ensuring that proposed tax increases by SEC 911 do not bypass board review and have wide public awareness and input. Although we've kind of given away some authority in the matters, there's nothing that can stop us from trying to bring this issue, this ongoing issue, as we see the operating expenses, assuredly increase. We've got no reason to believe that they won't. But bring this to public light, let them know why it is what it is, and let them know what they'll either have to choose to accept the increased burden that's been put on their shoulders, or they'll have to accept the idea that we'll have to cut elsewhere.
But Diane, isn't there, the nuance here is that if the SEC board wants to raise the levy rate, because they have the authority to propose it, right? it comes back to the Scott County Board of Supervisors for final approval.
I mean, it is a department within the county, so it is a, you know, a budgeted department, so ultimately they are looking at it, yes.
With the, right.
They
And that's part of
absolutely-
the stopping or minimizing portion. The unfortunate part is that most of the costs, upfront costs, were in loans that are gonna be paid back one way or the other. So the 20%
The bond.
increase, the bond, yeah.
Yeah.
The 20% increase is just to cover, in theory,
What we've already obligated.
because if you look at the board's numbers without SECC, it pretty much everything, at least by their numbers, looked like it was staying the same, status quo. It's only with the SECC numbers that the 20% increase comes into effect, that the $6.7 million increase in the yearly budget goes into effect. So I don't, you know, there's not much that we can do about that, but yeah, we can try and keep the taxes from going up for it. And I don't know, we can't, yeah, there's no way to defund something that's already owed, so.
Hey, Green, we can talk about these two.
I'm curious on, you know, the front line, as far as the frontline responders using these radios that cost so much. And obviously they're not using them, or that's the indication we're getting, is that no one is using them. When they're using less expensive gear, which we're estimating to be at $200 each. And I'm concerned that we're looking at, what, 400 and some odd county employees? And we got 1,500 radios, or 1,413 radios. It's like, where'd the rest of the radios go? Who's got them? You know, ship them up to another county, another school, give them to individuals. Secondly, looking at, I think we talked about it last night, some way of, or it was this morning, about, you know, maybe working, if nothing else, working back through the cost on these radios being so high, back through the vendors who actually supplied them, as to why they're so high, or did we have to go with that vendor, or, you know, just issues along that line because of the cost that it generated.
And an interesting thing about the radios is there's a per radio tower fee, and that's $28 a month per radio. So that's an ongoing expense.
It's just clear lack of oversight and diligence by the supervisors. They're rubber stamping everything that comes before them, and the people are just paying the price for it. There was some mess up or hiccup, you guys, with the geothermal stuff at the construction site for SEC, is that right?
Well, we know for one that they've had to, they found out at some point that, or they were told, the meeting minutes say that for whatever reason they rescinded a contingency for the geothermal to be paid for by a grant. Why did that happen? I guess it's because I don't know, because they had to get it done quickly. So they really needed to spend this money, so they had a contingency in place that said, we will do geothermal if we get this grant from the state of Iowa. That hadn't come to fruition yet, so they went ahead and rescinded that contingency, moved forward with it. It is a good question. How long would it take for geothermal to pay for itself there now?
I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
we ended up, they gambled on the grant. We ended up not getting it. We ended up getting half of it. Half of, geez.
280 or something like
Yeah,
that?
$280,000. I think it may have been more than that.
Yeah.
I think it was like 360. So they got some of it, but that, you know, we look at how the cost of the project increased. That's part of it. And then we kind of questioned the whole geothermal and fill, because they had to, there's a lot of dirt work cost, excavation costs that are going into it prior to the geothermal happening. So again, kind of, you know, devaluing the idea of having something like geothermal in there, which is supposed to be cost effective, probably is going to end up costing us more than other conventional HVAC methods would have been. So.
Oh, there's no doubt about that, but I mean, it pays back some. There's a savings with geothermal.
Well, there is
Yeah.
over time, but we've increased that. We've extended that payback period because
You didn't get the grant.
we didn't get the grant and
Oh,
because we
yeah.
had to do work to put it in. There's places that make sense and there's places that doesn't make sense, you know. So if you got to drill, if you have a house on the side of a mountain and you have to drill through, you know, granite to put it in, right? It's not cost effective, or maybe it would take, you know.
One of the things I'm excited about these candidates is that they've all had construction experience, engineering, building, running machinery, you
I mean,
know.
I just I look at this and say, I think a private contractor could have run an emergency management service to do the same thing out of an existing building for a fraction of the cost on a contract basis, but yet we created a bureaucracy, we created a taxing authority and a revenue stream and built a palace to do it in. And
It's ridiculous.
I mean, that's not what private industry would do.
But, and the only thing I can think of is that these people that, in the administration of the county, they're just like the administration at Deere, except at Deere, they're accountable to the stockholders.
Right.
And here they're not, and so they, you know, it looks like they're running amok, creating more and more and more because there's nobody to say no. Well,
And building a bigger fiefdom. I mean, that's
it.
That's
it.
So people have to say no at some point.
And I like the strategy that I heard, I think Jesse came up with it, is, you know, I know who these people are that created this, Dee and all those people that work for it. So I think our mantra should be, look, we're going to reduce taxes. We may go back to the 2005 level, if that's what our target is. And because the people out here in the county are hurting, the county needs to pare down a little bit. And in order to do that, you know, you've locked us into this Sec 911 deal. That can stay in the budget, but all the other departments other than the roads are going to have to suffer and pay for that.